What's up, gamers, and welcome back to another awesome Q&A with yours truly, the Game Master. So, today, my lovely followers have decided to ask me a series of questions, and I get to answer them. So, first questions first. How did you make this awesome, super cool movie opening? So, there's a lot of different ways to answer this, so I'll just kind of go over a little bit of a list I've made for answering a question like this. Essentially, it all starts with research. Research was the biggest part that me and my team had to do, and we had to plan out everything. So, our original plan, right from the get-go, was to make something awesome, something that was going to stick in your mind for a while, something that you were going to think about for a long, good while. And we decided to go with, well, something like an action thriller. Because, to be honest, they're just really awesome. And they work really, really well. They're not too difficult. It's not too hard. You don't even really need to be a good actor for them to work. And everything just came together into a perfect little puzzle piece. Or, well, not puzzle piece, you know what I mean. But, essentially, we kept planning out things and trying to research and find different action thrillers that we knew about and watched or read about or heard about. And we were thinking, how do we make this distinct, but still an action thriller? Obviously, you can't have a bunch of comedy in your action thriller. It doesn't tend to normally go very well. So, we had to think. We had to go, okay, what characters are we making? How do we make these? Where is the setting going to be? That was our biggest problem, honestly, was the setting. So, originally, I wanted to do a very, very simple, let's just do it at my house. It'll be easy, blah, blah, blah. And that could have worked. It could have been fine, sure. But the issue with doing it at my house is, well, how do you, how do you make an action thriller in someone's house? It's kind of hard to do something like that. And we had already filmed in my house for the midterm, and we didn't really want to do that again. So, what about downtown? Oh, yeah, downtown. One of the best spots to film a movie is easily downtown. Because with downtown, you have everything you could possibly need, You don't need to worry about, you don't have to worry about stuff like, what if your mom walks in and you're recording, because the ambiance of the people talking and the people being there adds to the scene. It makes an action thriller work so much better when there's real people doing normal things throughout their day as you're filming. It's great. It really adds to the scene, and it gives a lot of cool detail. So, speaking of cool detail, we had to collaborate a lot. And I had asked, and so of course, action thriller, what do you need? Guns, duh. So I asked a friend of mine if we could borrow some BB guns, airsoft guns, that kind of thing, for our film opening. And, he was sort of on board with it, except for the fact that he was kind of a little skept out with the fact that we didn't technically have full-on police permission to film with the guns. And so, at the sort of last second, he decided to bail on us. And, I don't blame him, you know what I mean? I wouldn't want to risk getting caught or, arrested or whatever. That kind of thing. I get it. I totally get where he's coming from, you know what I mean? So, my team, had to improvise. We had to go, oh, crap, we don't have guns. We don't have guns for our action thriller movie. What are we going to do, right? And so, my first thought was, oh, we can just use knives. We can use other weapons. You don't have to use a gun. Guns aren't the only thing. And hey, doesn't it make a cooler movie if you have an action thriller with assassins and stuff, and they're, beating each other up with weapons that aren't just guns? Because think about it. Guns are used in every action thriller. From John Wick to Jason Bourne, right? But imagine an action thriller without guns. You know what I mean? You're using the primal, melee weapons and stuff. It really, 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 it's really cool. But we also ended up deciding that would be a little bit strange and off-putting for an action thriller, and it would also require us to be carrying around all that stuff and having to use it would just be like a little weird. So we decided on a separate medium approach where we would essentially just have, we would make the shots angled and look a certain way so you didn't really notice too much that we weren't using any actual guns. There's a scene in the beginning where Lola is like holding a gun and she shoots, holding a gun in quotation marks, of course. You can't see that, but still, she shoots, she shoots Jake, right? She shoots the homeless guy, but you don't see it. You just see the flash of the light, and then there's a little blood splatter on her face. It really, really adds to the scene and makes the scenery and makes the movie overall look a lot better than if we just had guns in the first place, to be honest with you. I think it makes the scenes a lot more cinematic. So, anyway, moving on to our other questions here. How did we get this whole thing done? What was our whole process? So, we started by planning out what we wanted. We wanted an action thriller. We wanted to film it downtown. And that was really our main goal. Everything else would be able to be swapped in. I think that was our team's main strength, adaptability. Because most teams, most groups would have a plan, they'd have it all set, and they wouldn't have a backup plan. They wouldn't have any backup plan at all. And so, when shit hit the fan, they were like, oh my god, what do we do? Oh my god, this is still going so wrong. But with us, it was like, okay, this isn't working out, let's try something else. This isn't working out, let's try something else. You have to have adaptability, otherwise you're not going to get anywhere. And so, we decided to go downtown. We went downtown a little bit later than we wanted to, in terms of dates and stuff, but that's okay. It's not a big deal, So we went downtown, we filmed, and so the filming process, that was a doozy. So essentially, we were filming up the scenes, We had to move a couple of times location-wise, because these those people were trying to park their cars where we wanted to film, and they were like, hey, can you move and stuff so we can park? And we're like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. Yes, we'll move. And so, we moved to a spot. And so, an issue had arose. None of us brought a script for the, movie. We made a whole script. I made a whole script. It was really, really well written. It was really cool. We didn't have it. We didn't have access to it. I couldn't pull it up on my phone. It was being really dumb. My phone wasn't loading properly because we were downtown in the middle of in this parking area, and it's bad Wi-Fi, all that stuff. And so we were like, oh my god, this is so bogus. It's so dumb. But we had to improvise our lines. And honestly, it wasn't really the worst thing in the world. It definitely wasn't great. But, I mean, hey, adaptability. Again, if you can't adapt and you can't come up with stuff on the fly, you're not really going to get anywhere with this whole thing. That's the entire premise of making a film. If something goes wrong, you have to be able to adapt. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. And so, the rest of the filming process was pretty straightforward. We got the shots, we did the thing, we got the thing done. We did a lot of cool camera work, we did a lot of cool acting scenes, did a few reshoots here and there, but honestly not too many. It wasn't really we had to reshoot 15 times for something or anything. Everything just seemingly worked. We either had 1 or 2 takes per scene, because honestly and really the retakes weren't even we did something wrong. It was oh, we can improve on this in a way, you know what I mean? There's ways we can make this look better, make this look cooler, make this seem more like an action thriller movie, And so, we got back and we were ready to start editing. Now this was where we kind of messed up a little bit. So Lola was editing, and so we were all kind of kicked back, relaxed, because hey, we were done filming early. Who cares, right? We were done filming early, we were all ready, it's not that big of a deal. Nobody's even close to where we were, We were done filming. We were done filming before March even started, so it was okay, we're good. But we kind of got a little bit too lazy with it. We kind of started slacking off. We didn't do any voiceovers or sound effects until it was way too late into the game. And that was a bit bad. But, hey, we got through it. We got all that stuff in there. We succeeded in, making the film work. And we got it all in there. We got all the sound in there, the sound effects. We had to run around in the classroom, Whew, that was fun. But you know, it is what it is. Alright, so next question. How did my skills grow? So I think that my skills grew not really in a way that you'd expect. I didn't really get that much better at using stuff like Adobe Premiere Pro or like, you know, any editing software. I didn't really do a lot of editing. But I think my skills as sort of a script writer or like director, you know, kind of improved a lot over the course of this project. I'm usually not someone who like likes to be conflicting. I don't like to like start conflict. I don't like to like really tell people what to do because I like people having their own autonomy. But an issue started arising where like we weren't really focused or we weren't really doing what we were supposed to do, and I had to kind of step in a little more than I was kind of comfortable with. I just step out of my comfort zone in order to make sure that we were doing what we were supposed to do, because otherwise we wouldn't get the project done at all. You know, if I didn't say anything, to be honest with you, we probably would have never gotten this project done at all. We would have definitely just like completely failed, and that would have been bad. So thankfully, you know, I had to learn to step up as a director. I had to learn to step up and you know, I didn't remember what the shots were. I knew everything. Thankfully, I have a pretty good memory. So I knew everything in advance. I knew where this stuff went. I knew how to make it look good in chronological order. I knew everything about the characters and what they were like and how they were like and, you know, why they were the way they were and stuff like that. So that was always great. I like the fact that I improved as a director and as a scriptwriter too, because, oh man, my first draft for this whole movie opening was weak. But I added a lot of good dialogue things, a lot of good stuff here and there. Unfortunately, none of it got used, but yeah, you know, you can't always win. You know, it's okay. It's not a big deal. We didn't need that script anyways, you know what I mean? It's not important. But yeah. So in terms of like tool usage, right? Like, I don't mean, you know, hitting stuff with rocks. I'm not talking about that kind of tool. But, you know, so using stuff like cameras and all that, we didn't really do that. So we got an idea. Instead of like grabbing some big expensive camera from Mr. Z, instead of like taking a DSLR or like one of those really big like studio style cameras that are really high quality, we were like, hey, Jake got a new phone. He got an iPhone 16 Pro. And that iPhone honestly has camera quality that's on par, or at least sometimes even better than these high quality cameras. And we don't have to learn how to actually use it. It's easy. It's easy to use an iPhone. You know, you just click record, you're good. There's no doodads and other buttons and weird junk, you know? There wasn't anything weird like that. But we wanted to be able. The only issue with an iPhone is holding an iPhone and trying to get tracking shots is, well, it doesn't really work. So we decided to use a gimbal, which was this cool, like, rotating device that you attach to the phone, and it allows the phone to track shots. It can track people's movement and stuff. It can track while you're moving the camera. It's really, really cool. And we use that a lot in order to just sort of convey a sense of like fluidity, you know, because that's the one thing you want in an action thriller. Nobody wants a choppy camera. You want fluid. You want every scene to sort of meld into this like liquidy gold of like fluid movements, characters moving like, you know, very fluidly and professionally and like cool looking, right? Choppy footage, you know, shaky footage, I mean, would make the film look a lot weaker. If we didn't have the gimbal, oh man, doing those like shots where you're walking around and stuff, because the gimbal adds stability too. Because when I was walking up the stairs, or when Jake or Alex was walking down the stairs, you know, there was just moments where like, you know, for a fact that if you know, the cameraman at the time was following us, like if either Jake or Alex was following, you know, us down or up the stairs without the gimbal, the camera would have looked shaky and messy and blurry, and it would have been awful to have to try to make that look good at all. So, you know, there was that. In terms of like software, we just used Adobe Premiere Pro because Lola and Alex know how to use it really well. And, you know, like, yeah, it's more advanced than something like CapCut or something, but we didn't want to use CapCut because why would you use something like CapCut when we have Adobe Premiere Pro for free? It's a way better editing software. It does everything CapCut does with better. You can just go so much more in detail with slicing up and like blurring or making stuff look better. It's just like overall a better experience. There's no reason to not use something like CapCut. Yeah, I don't know. There's not really anything to talk about with that. I think that the only real problems and limitations and stuff that we really faced was involving, like, well, to be honest, the real problems that were involved was the gimbal. Ooh, bless me. Sorry. Bless you. That's not how that works. But sorry, yeah. The only real, genuine issue we had was the gimbal. As awesome as it was, as useful as it was, that thing was being really, really wonky. We had to, like, look up how to make it work. We were trying to figure it around. It was being really annoying. And oh my god, it was just... because we were like, why isn't this working? Why isn't it connecting to Jake's phone? And, you know, we had to, like, Bluetooth it into the, you know, we had to connect it via Bluetooth, and then it wasn't connecting properly. We had to reconnect it, and then disconnect it, and then reconnect it, and keep on putting it on and off and on and off the friggin' iPhone. It was just such a mess. But, and also, it didn't last very long. Jake had charged it the entire day before, like, we started filming, so it was fully charged. It was all ready to go. There's no way it wasn't ready to go. And then it just, like, died. You know, at the last, literal last scene, at the last scene of the film, it dies. It just dies on us. And it was like, oh my god, you couldn't have lasted like 30 more seconds. So we had to film that last scene, you know, handheld, because the gimbal was dead. And if the gimbal is dead, it can't stabilize, it can't track shots fluidly, it's basically useless, you know? So that was a little annoying. That was the only real technical limitation I can think of. Adobe Premiere Pro was a godsend. There was no real issues using Premiere Pro. I mean, I think Lola maybe asked Mr. Z one question, but to be honest, I don't know. It wasn't really Premiere's fault. It was more like Lola didn't know something about Premiere, and Mr. Z just explained it to her. So, you know, there's just that. It's pretty simple stuff, I think. Yeah, I think that we overall did really, really well. I think that my skills and, you know, like, you know, I think my production skills developed a lot throughout the project. I went from someone who didn't really understand the facets of, like, script writing or, like, how to make a script or how to, like, get a team together working on something. And now I realize that, like, it's a lot harder than it looks, but it's still very doable. And I think that it's something that I can continue to work on and continue to get better at, you know, as time goes on. But anyway, that's going to be it for all the questions. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow for, you know, more cool, awesome content like this. All right, peace, y'all.